certainly have the privilege of introducing a speaker that's special to us this morning. Chief Ray Downey of the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Department. 31 years of fire service with Miami-Dade and retired as their fire chief just not long ago. But certainly they gave me a big bio to read out. There wasn't a cash offer last night, so I'm not going to sell you that well, but let you do that yourself. But certainly a couple of things about him. Just a good man. Had an opportunity to go to dinner last night, learn a little more about him, good conversation, and really a couple of things that stood out. Number one, they brought a salad and turned it down. If it didn't have a mother, he ain't eating it, and I like that. No salads. But again, a wife is a fire chief as well, so kind of grew up in a household. My dad was a fireman, mom was a paramedic, so he kind of referenced that family dinners are more like staff meetings, and that was kind of what we grew up with at home. But again, we're glad to have you here. Thank you for coming, and again, look forward to the message you share with us this morning. So,
all right.
Chief?
Thank you. I got to switch things out. Appreciate it. Thanks. All right, well, good morning again. We're going to switch over the slides here so that get the presentation up. And I want to thank the South Carolina State Firefighters Association for having me. It's an honor to be here today and to speak with you all. And what I was asked to talk about is something that I've done with several organizations, several departments, is just talk a little bit about leadership in today's fire service. And this is geared towards those who aspire to be leaders, those who are currently officers, chief officers. It's not pigeonholed to one particular entity. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. So I'm here to talk about our great fire service. And I think whenever we have conversations within the different organizations, it turns out we all are the same. I mean, we wear a different uniform, we have a different patch, but at the end of the day, the same challenges that I have, the same challenges that I've experienced, you all are experiencing as well. And so it's a great opportunity. I love interacting with fellow firefighters. We're going to have similarities and we're going to have differences. Some of us come from larger organizations, some are combination organizations, but at the end of the day, we still have the same mission, and we all have to accomplish the same goals. I have some topics to discuss. It's kind of a big group, but really anything's on the table. If we have some time for question and answer, more than happy to engage and have some conversation. I'll be here afterwards for a little bit of time to talk as well. So I'm looking forward to the interaction. So right off the bat, though, I want to set the stage. What's the most common injury in today's fire service? What's that? Back, slips and falls, muscular, skeletal type stuff. I don't know about your department. For my department, the most common injury in today's fire service is hurt feelings. And so I created a hurt feelings report so that if somebody is offended or hurt by something I said or something I did, I issued the hurt feelings report. So I'm not here, I don't want to offend anybody. I'm here speaking my opinions, my experience, my time. I'm sure yours are slightly different, but hopefully we'll get some good discussion, some good dialogue, and go through it. So a little bit about me. In total, 37 years in the fire service. I just recently retired this past May, and so I'm still kind of working my way into this retirement thing. I still feel like I'm kind of just on a long vacation right now. Although it hit me right away when they shut your account down, no more emails, no more anything like that from the department, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't have to look at my phone every minute of the day anymore. My wife is still working. She's a fire chief, so I don't need a calendar. If I wake up and she's there, I know it's the weekend. If I wake up and she's gone, I know it's a weekday. So that works out pretty good. I'm one of the first fire chiefs in Miami-Dade Fire Rescue that worked through all the ranks. So I started as a firefighter. I worked through each of the ranks progressively in the fire department. As a division chief, I covered operations. For a while, I was in EMS, and I spent a good part of my time in training. And that's really where my foundation is in training. And so, I'm a stickler for classroom type setups and how things are done, and I'm always picking on the guys, hey, when you get up, push your chair in, those types of things, because my background is with training. I was chief of operations before becoming the fire chief. I never aspired to be the fire chief. I kind of was the last man standing is kind of what happened, but I was honored to be the fire chief. I served in that role for a little over 6 years, and it was a great opportunity and great department. So where do I come from? Miami-Dade County in southern part of Florida. Our service area is about 1,900 square miles. So the only department in the country that serves a bigger area is Los Angeles County. So we're second in area that we have to cover. A population of about 2.6 million people. And one of the unique things, and I'm sure those that represent counties here, within our jurisdiction, we have the unincorporated areas of the county, but we also serve 29 municipalities. So not only did I serve a mayor and a commission for the county, but I served 29 other mayors and 29 other commissioners. So those of you that are fire chiefs and you think, you know, one of the worst things I had for a job was having to go to these commission meetings. Imagine having to do 30 of them. Now, I didn't do that every month or every week, but I served many masters. As far as Miami-Dade Fire Rescue goes, we are a full-service fire rescue department. So we do everything from fire prevention and education to suppression, integrated EMS within the fire department, integrated special operations within the fire department. We operate 4 rescue helicopters, 2 full-time all the time, 2 fire boats full-time. So, you know, a large service area. We have technical rescue, hazardous materials, urban search and rescue. There's 2,600 personnel, just over 2,100 of them are firefighters, uniformed firefighters. And we were talking before I kicked off this morning. I was chief for a little over 6 years. I hired 500 firefighters. So think about it. I mean, almost a quarter of my department has less than 6 years on the job. So we have a young fire service, and we'll talk more about that, but it's something to be aware of because we are a young fire service. And I'm sure it's the same within your organizations. We're seeing a turnover of our firefighters. For us, it's a challenge. You know, I said I've got kids watching kids. You know, I have people that become a chief in 10 years on the fire department. I was a firefighter for 10 years before I became a lieutenant. So it's just a different animal. We have 70 stations and still growing. There's still a lot of area that needs additional service. We serve 3 airports, including the big one, Miami International Airport, the Seaport, Port Miami, and cover 88 miles of coastline. So operate 145 units, and in 2018 responded to just over 260,000 calls. So busy place, big place, but compared to my wife's department, she has 7 stations. So I'd always tell her it's just a scale, right? If you've got 1 knucklehead, just imagine I've got 10 of them because I'm 10 times the size of you. And if I have 10 of them, there's a good chance you've got 1 of them. So just to be aware of that. So it's all scale. Now, I spent, as you heard, 31 years with Miami-Dade. Prior to that, I was in a municipal department, city of Sunrise, which is just a community up in Broward County, where I spent 6 years. So why am I here? You know, why did they invite me to come and to speak to you all? I'm hoping that everybody else turned them down. I'm hoping it wasn't that everybody else turned them down. I'm apparently the expert, right? That's why I'm here. And I don't know how you all define an expert. Where I come from, we say that an expert travels over 50 miles, wears a suit, and has a briefcase. That defines an expert. So I'm apparently the expert. But I kind of take offense to that because I'm really not the expert. Because if you break up the word, an X is a has-been, and I guess you could say I'm a has-been fire chief, but a spurt is an inefficient stream. So I really don't characterize myself as either one of those. I still believe I'm a firefighter at heart. I always will be. So I don't see myself as an X, and I'm certainly not an inefficient stream. I'm here because I want to talk to you all primarily, but we'll talk about some other things, about leadership. And I do consider myself a student of leadership. And I think any of you that are officers or any of you that aspire to be officers, if you're not, you should become a student of leadership. Because as we talk about it, it's not an exact science. It's something you're going to have to work on. I tell all our new officers, you're going to spend your entire career now as an officer working on this. I spent 37 years in the fire service, and all of my time as an officer, I was still learning about leadership. So I'm here to kind of talk about my perspective from leadership. It's not all inclusive. There's not a magic pill. There's not a magic 4 steps. So if you're here for that, I'm sorry, I'm going to let you down. But we'll talk about perspective. So being a student, I read a lot. Now, I read stuff for pleasure as well, but I try to read books on leadership. And I've read books from football coaches to Navy SEALs to military leaders. I'm reading General Mathis's book right now, phenomenal book, who was in charge of the Department of Defense. There's not one perfect book. What I realized right away, Colin Powell will tell you there's 18 steps to leadership. If you read Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, he'll tell you there's 6 steps of leadership. They all change. But one of the things I realized was that I can take bits and pieces of that and try to apply them in my own environment. And that's what being a student is all about. Constantly learning, always trying to pick up the information, always trying things out. Isn't that what we do in training? You know, we practice, we practice, we practice. Sometimes we go, I'm not going to do that again. That's part of the learning as well. So being a student of leadership means you take the time, you look at these things. If, nowadays people are into podcasts and all of that, if that works for you, great. Go into lectures, go into conferences. I constantly still will just write down notes. I was listening to a show on my way up here, taking notes as I was driving. But it was okay, I was being safe. I put the texting down. So, first off, I want to talk about some terminology, some differences. So, we've heard the term boss. Sometimes it's used affectionately, sometimes it's not used affectionately. But we need to decide. You need to decide. Are you a boss or are you a leader? Is there a difference? I believe there is. I believe there is. The old boss hog there, who knows who this person is here on the right? You might have read his book if you studied for a promotional exam. That's John Norman. He retired from New York Fire Department. After September 11th, he was tasked with rebuilding the entire special operations. They had lost almost 100 of their personnel, their highly skilled personnel, and John was tasked with rebuilding it. I knew John way back when he first became a lieutenant, and to me, he's the epitome of being a leader. So what's a boss? And a lot of the things that I talk about today, you're going to start, everybody does, I do it when I'm sitting in there. You start putting names on these. Oh yeah, I know that person. Okay, when we talk about qualities, good and bad, you start applying names to that. So the boss instills fear and uncertainty. Keeps you totally out of balance. Please don't blurt the names out here because I don't want anybody to go, oh yeah, I know that guy. Says go and do it, right? The old parent-child relationship. Do it because I said so. That's why you do it. Makes the work a grind. And relies on their authority. I'm the boss. I've got the badge. That's why we do it. Is that the right person? Does anybody know one of these people? Have you ever worked for? Because you don't work with these people. You work for these people. Right? Constantly says, I. If it was great, I did it. If it didn't work out so great, well, I got a bunch of screw-ups. I can't fix it. They're all idiots. So, I don't want everybody to get up and leave. But if you're a boss, if you aspire to be a boss, this is the wrong place for you. You don't need to be here. Because this is not what we're here to talk about. This is not what fire service leadership is all about. The boss is the person that you want to avoid. But the boss is somebody you can learn from. The boss is somebody that you can say, that's exactly what I'm not going to be doing. I mean, how many times you get the officers that say, now that I'm the lieutenant, you have to respect me. Have you ever heard that? Or I'm the chief, you have to respect me. Right? Well, there is a certain amount of respect that has to come with that rank, right? But respect has to be what? Earned. Respect has to be earned. Yes, you wear the badge, you have the respect. More importantly, you have the responsibility. Don't worry if you all see me sweating, I'm not having a heart attack. I sweat in the shower, so it doesn't matter. What was I just talking about? You have to earn the respect. And that's something that's a little more difficult to do. So, some things I want you to think about, some things we're going to talk about. What attributes, in your mind, make a good leader? We all have worked with those good leaders, or we've watched those leaders, or we want to work with those people. What are those attributes that you said, that's what I want to mimic? You know, I really like how lieutenant, captain, chief, so-and-so treated his or her men and women. I like that. Those were the qualities that I like. And it's different for all of us, right? I mean, I have chiefs that worked for me that were affectionately known as hard asses, right? And we had people that would migrate to work with those chiefs. They liked that kind of leadership. I had other chiefs that would sit at the kitchen table, everybody hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And his men and women would die for him. They liked that leadership style. So people develop different styles. You need to think about what are those qualities that you liked, and what are those qualities you didn't like. Where does leadership start? Within yourself. Does it start the day you get the badge? Years before. Years before. Okay? Who has the most leadership influence in your organization? Is it by rank? Good chance. Said firefighter. There's a good chance. Influence. Not the official leadership, but influence. But it doesn't necessarily have to be top down. In fact, most of the time it's not top down. You know, some people would go, man, you were the fire chief. I don't know how you did it, chief. I said, I had the easiest job in the fire department. All I had to do was say yes. Everybody else had to do all the work. So, who has the most influence as leaders within your organization? And why? How many of your chief officers are true leaders? Okay? How many of those are true leaders in your eyes? They have those qualities that you say, that's why this person's a leader. And how many of your company officers are effective leaders? So these are some things we're going to talk about. These are some things I want you to think about. These are the things that you want to start trying to work through. This is hard. Leadership is abstract. You know, one of the things, everybody asks me what I want to do after I retired. I'm not going to become another fire chief. I already did that. I'm not going to go to work for FEMA. I do a lot of work with search and rescue. But I want to get back to the fire service. So one of the things is I want to develop leaders. And it's much harder to do, and it's much harder to measure. You know, I could go ahead and give a saving our own class, and we could check a box, and everybody drugged the person out or slid down the ladder or whatever it was you did. Everybody's been trained. But how do you do that with leadership? Yes, sir. Yep.
I think back in the day, you did have more bosses.
Yep. I agree.
And that was just the norm of that during that time.
Yep.
As we evolved, we found out that the boss center was not that good.
Yep.
You got a leader. I always think about the differences, you know.
Yep.
Bosses told you what to do. Leaders allow you to do it.
Absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. I mean, you summed it all up, right? I mean, you're right on spot. Back in the day, we saw a lot more of the boss type things, okay? But it's transitioning out. Unfortunately, though, we still have those folks. And a lot of times it's because of insecurities. You know, I could spend a whole day just talking about how to tackle your own insecurities. And the first thing is, if I say to you, what's your insecurities? You go, I don't have anything. I'm pretty confident. All right? You're the worst. All right? So you don't even know what your insecurities are. So part of the problem is those insecurities. Part of those problems is things happen so fast, and all of a sudden you catch yourself. You know, I was a new lieutenant. They moved me to a very busy engine company with very seasoned firefighters. I mean, I was the junior man on the apparatus, and I was very much intimidated. But I took that as an opportunity. I'm going to leverage that experience to help me. And we're going to train. We're not going to train because you need it. We're going to train because I need it. And it's important for me. And you have to leverage that. But the officer that was there the 6 months before I finally got there had just about destroyed that station. And he was very similar to me in that he was junior to those men on the apparatus, but took a different approach. My way or the highway. Have we heard that before? So it's important. And it's tough. It's a tough job to do. Like I said, it's a much simpler to teach a ladder class or a hose stretch or positive pressure ventilation or RIT because you can see the results immediately. It doesn't happen that way with leadership. So it's tough. Now, if you Google or Wikipedia or go to the old dictionary, there's at least 50 definitions for leader. That's part of the problem, right? We can't say this is what a leader is. Okay, I can put a tag on and say I'm the leader. One of them is a pipe for conducting hot air. And we have some of those, right? Those types of leaders. Okay? Now, there's some out there that say, look, you either got it or you don't. Right? We've heard it, right? That person is a natural leader. They're definitely out there, right? I mean, we've seen them before. Might have worked with them, but we certainly have seen them before. That person's a natural leader. You have to be born with it. So you think to yourself, I'm a new officer. I definitely wasn't born with it. I barely passed the test, but they gave me the badge. I'm never going to be a good leader. That's where you start transitioning to the boss part. All right? I don't believe that you have to be born with it. I do believe that you work on these things early on. I believe that these lessons are learned long before you get that badge. I don't just believe it, I know it. And I don't think it's true you're natural. Leadership can be learned. That's the good news here. You can develop. Even if you've been on the job 20, 25 years, you're on the tail end of your career. And you say, you know, my career's past me. You can still develop yourself. Leadership can be learned. This is a model out of the Army's leadership development. Very similar to fire, right? What are our pillars? Training, education, and experience. All three. All right? You need training, you need education, and you need experience. That's what holds the structure together. And you gain that through a myriad of different ways. Is a college degree necessary? It helps, but it's not an end-all. How many of us have seen people that got tons of college degrees, still can't lead men and women, right? They still can't do it. They can't apply it. Our mayor put us all through a university leadership development program, and it was awesome. I mean, it was great. I got things out of it. But I sat there and I'm thinking, man, all these doctors and stuff are talking about theories. They don't do this every day. And then they assigned us all to a coach, a leadership coach. And you did all these assessments, and your people assess you, and all this other stuff. And I met with my coach, and by the time we were done, I really got the feeling that I was teaching him. Like he was intrigued at what I do and how I apply those. because all he's ever worked on is theory. He's got the strong education, but he hasn't really done the actual training, and he certainly doesn't have the experience. Okay? So all of these are necessary. Likewise, just because you've got 20 years on the job and you've been to every fire in your city and you've saved every person that ever has been saved, does not mean you're the best leader. That does not mean you're the best. You've got one of those pillars, but your house is still out of tilt. So you got to look at all of them. So what are some qualities? Throw some words out. I just want a word. You think of the leaders you've worked with. What are qualities you like? Listener. Approachable. Humility. Trustworthy. Honest. Open-minded. Respectful. Transparent. Great stuff, right? What are you doing now? You're thinking about people that you said, this is why I aspired to work with that person. This is why I like this person. How about duty? Right? I learned duty is that force that brings you to where you have to be, not necessarily where you want to be. Right? Maybe you get an assignment that's not the best company, it's not the company you wanted to work for. It's not the assignment you wanted to work for, but you have a duty to fulfill that. And how you do that defines you as a leader. Right? I mean, as an instructor, when you're teaching a program, what's the best program? Mine. The one I'm doing is the most important one. In my mind, that's the way it has to be. I'm not going to tell you it's the most important one, but in my mind, it's the most important one. And how many times, as part of it, we go, oh, I don't know, this promotional thing isn't worth it. You know, they stuck me over in fire prevention, or they put me in training. I don't want to be in training. You know, they put me on the slowest company in the city. I want to be where the action is. That's where duty comes in. Respect, right? Mutual respect. We have to have that. Not only internally, but externally is a sign of a good leader. Integrity. Sometimes we call that your pedigree, right? You were an awesome firefighter. Does that carry you as an officer? Not necessarily. Could help, but your integrity. I heard humility. Being humble enough to say, you're right, yep, I screwed this one up. Character. You know, this is the person you want to emulate. This is the person that has that strength of character, strength of conviction. Confidence. Is this important? Yeah. Don't confuse confidence, though, with arrogance and ego. Don't confuse them. You know, we'll talk about decision making, but, you know, it's tough. But confidence is, we're going to do it. But I also have to have the confidence to say, that was a stupid move. Let's go to plan B. Is that confidence as well? Yeah. Yeah. So confidence is important. But don't confuse the terms. Some people say, we're going to do it. And we're going to stay with this. Now, sometimes you have to do that. And sometimes there is going to be a little bit of pain. And you have to have the confidence to say, I know this is going to work. But you got to tread lightly. An effective communicator. We'll talk a little bit more about communications later. But you have to be an effective communicator. You have to be a leader. You have to be a motivator. The glass is always half full, not half empty. Even if it's half empty, your people cannot know that. You may think that, but they can't know that. You've got to be the positive driving force. All right? You have to be the cheer leader. All right? Now, not blindly, but you have to be that motivator. You have to inspire others. That's critically important. You have to have credibility. A lot of times this, again, has to be earned. And you have to have empathy. Do you treat everybody the same? It's easy to say, but is it practical? It's tough. You've got to have that empathy. Empathy is putting yourself in their shoes. Now, again, this can be a slippery slope. Sometimes you have to say, look, you got to pick it up here. I've been there before. All right? Perfect example. You heard my wife and I, we're both firefighters. We came up through the ranks as firefighters. We had a family. It's a challenge. It's a challenge when you're on a 24-hour shift, who's taking care of the kids? I mean, we tried the crate and the leave of self-feeding food, but it only worked a couple times. As I got around 3 or 4, it worked most of the time. But, you know, I get these, you know, new families that come and, you know, I'm a stickler for sick leave usage. You know, you better be sick if you call out. If you're not, you're coming to see me. And, you know, it's, and I hear it constantly, you know, well, I had this, you know, I had child care issues. You know, I can be empathetic to a point, but I've walked your road, all right? I know the challenges. You've got to make it work. You have to work through the issues. So having that empathy. This is a quote from Don Shula, still the winningest coach in the NFL. But leading by example is the only way I know how to lead. I thought that was a great quote. Okay? I'm going to set the example. I'm going to take these qualities. This is who I am. I'm not going to tell you to do something I'm not going to do. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to do everything you're going to do. Now, I get the new officers in. Every officer that gets promoted has to come see me and get their badge. And we have a little talk. And we have an official promotional thing. But, you know, we promote so many people all the time because of just the turnover and how large the department is. But one of the things I tell them is, listen, you're going to migrate back to where you feel comfortable. After the fire, you're going to feel like you got to be out there loading the hose with the guys and repacking everything and doing everything. And that's important, all right? You shouldn't just be sitting enjoying yourself. But just remember, when you get back to the station, they're going to all be watching TV, eating, sleeping, and you're going to be in the front office doing all the paperwork. So there's a balance there, okay? So you lead by example. But that doesn't mean that I've got to do everything you do, because you're not doing everything I do, right? So that's the thing. You know, for me as fire chief, it was important to me that my staff chiefs all rotated through duty call. That it wasn't just the 4 operations chiefs, but the staff chiefs also had their shot in the bucket as well. So if we had a significant event for a week, you're the duty chief, you're covering it. That type of thing. They still were subject to do runs and run calls and things like that. Because we were going to lead by example. I wasn't going to break other chiefs' chops when my own chiefs aren't doing that job. Because at the end of the day, fire prevention, training, special ops, all that stuff's really important. But the important thing is running the calls, doing the emergency services. And so we're going to lead by example. We're going to all respond. Not the white wave, you know, that's what we used to hear it. All the white shirts show up, right? You know, chaos, chief has arrived on scene. All right, so leadership is not what you do to people. All right, it's what you do with people. Okay, so I'm not leadershiping you, I'm not leading you. We're working together. So leadership is not what we do, leadership is what we do with. And great leaders aren't the ones who do great things. They're the ones that encourage others. A sign at the end of the day, if you look back on your career, what's going to define your leadership is going to be, how did you change others? How did you affect change in others? Might just be stopping the person from abusing sick time, right? But how did you inspire others? This is a quote from Ronald Reagan, another arguably, you know, strong leader. Strength of conviction. So how are you inspiring others? Which is tougher. One of my faults, it's much easier for me to go, yeah, the way I got it. It's much easier for me just to do it. But how am I encouraging others to learn and develop by doing that? I'm not. Leadership's an art, not a science. It's a lot more like making sausage than calculating friction loss. Okay? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's different with different people. You have to apply different skills to different people. I'm not going to talk to, a 40-ish man or woman, has a family, worked out in the, private sector before coming on the fire department, been around. I'm not going to treat that or act that way to that person as I am going to be the 18-year-old that had a chance of working either at the fire department or Walmart. And they figured, oh, it's just a job. It's a different person, okay? And we have to use little bits and pieces. And you have to figure out, sometimes you don't do the right thing. Sometimes you don't always understand the exact point of view. And so sometimes you got to say, that didn't work on this person. That's why when I was going through my higher education, they had this distance learning thing. I took a master's program where some of the students did the whole thing on the computer. I like being in a class. I like looking at people. I like looking at their reactions. I can tell when you all start falling asleep. I can see the reactions. If I'm working with somebody, I can see the reaction and know, I'm probably going down the wrong road here. Maybe I should channel this a different way. Okay? So it's a science. I already said this, you're going to spend your entire career perfecting it. And then once you got it, you retire. No, just kidding. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to understand. I'm still reading. I'm still trying to apply things. Utilize the lessons you've observed and learned from others. We talked about this. The strong qualities, both sides. We've all worked for those people that you say, when I become the lieutenant, the captain, the chief, that's exactly what I'm not going to do. I worked for a lieutenant that, as a firefighter, I get it. I'm subordinate to the lieutenant. But I always came in with a plan in mind, too. Maybe I was going to work on these tools today or clean this or do that. I kind of loosely had a plan in my mind. And he was one of those guys that would, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon after we've been working all day, goes, all right, let's load them up. We're heading here. Holy shit, what's going on? We got a call? No. I had to run to the store real quick. And you're like, gee, I just, sat down, relaxed, and I tried to always kind of plan things out, let the guys know. We'd have a briefing in the morning. Hey, this is what's going on today. Anybody got anything else today? Kind of set the schedule. I said to myself, I'm not going to be that guy. That's exactly what I don't want to do. And if it happens, if I get a call from the chief, and the chief's like, hey, we need you to come down or go here and pick this up or change this out, I'm empathetic. I let the guys know. I'm not begging them or anything like that, but I'm saying, hey, I know we talked about this, but we got to run down to support and change out this. So they realize, hey, we got to do it, but this isn't something I'm just dropping on you. And become the student. So who's the best leader? How does that come out? And we kind of touched on this already. Is that the skilled operator? You're like, oh man, Mary is the firefighter's firefighter. When she's eligible for lieutenant, she's going to be the best. She's done everything. She's taken every class. She does special operations. She does it all. Is that the best leader? So I say not necessarily. Here's the laundry list, right? You got a certificate for everything. You've done everything you possibly can. But you have no skills as a leader. And more importantly, you're not open-minded enough to learn. So give me the person with a good understanding of the fundamentals. I don't want a knucklehead that can't even tie the simple knot or puts a ladder up upside down. That's not what I'm talking about here. So somebody has got a good foundation, but they have sound leadership qualities. That's who I want. That's who I need as a leader. And as the fire chief, my divisions, assistants, and deputies worked at my pleasure. In other words, it wasn't a written test or something. So I would interview people. And these are the things that I'm looking for. They're going to come in with all their certificates, all their education. But then we're going to talk. And I'm going to ask them, give me 3 qualities of a leader. What are 2 of your weaknesses? Those are the things I want to know. Because those are the things that are important to me. So leadership's not about getting people to like you, right? It's getting them to respect you. Okay? When I became fire chief, I did a monthly video. That's the only way to get the message out to everybody. And you can tell I'm a guy that's got a face for radio, so I hate being recorded. No offense. And I never watched a single one of my videos, so I trusted our public affairs did the right thing. But I told everybody when I became the fire chief, everybody on this department is going to be happy that I'm the chief. It's kind of a bold statement, isn't it? Because I thought, you're either happy I'm the chief now, or you're going to be happy when I leave. But either way, you're going to be happy. Right? So, but you want to have the people respect you. And that doesn't mean you got to be the jerk. But I got plenty of friends. Some of them are on the fire department. And I want to have other friends. But I'm not here to make new friends. I'm here to do a job. Okay? And it's more important to me that you respect me than it is that I'm your buddy. So, some things about good leaders. Not a great picture here, but this man is a leader. Mike Warner, a retired lieutenant from our job. That's the guy that has all those skills as an operator and as a phenomenal leader. Takes charge. There's no doubt who's in charge. Now, Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister of England, she once said that being a leader is like being a lady. If I have to tell you I'm one, I'm not. Right? If I have to tell you I'm the boss, that's not a good term. If I got to tell you I'm the lieutenant or the captain or the chief, there's a good chance I'm not. Okay? So they take charge. They motivate. They can communicate. They're an effective communicator. It's clear what the message is. They demonstrate initiative, but caution, that does not mean freelancing. Okay? But we know those good leaders, right? The ones that I don't have to tell, I need you to go around back and open the place up. Look, here's what I need you to do. I need you to take these tools off the apparatus, place them here on the door, make this kind of purchase point, do this kind of thing. Better use John. John's stronger than Bill. That's what we're talking about here, right? So they demonstrate initiative. And they make sound decisions. And we'll talk more about decision making. Directs their people to safely accomplish the mission. Isn't that our goal, right? As the leader, you're responsible for those men and women on your unit, under your command. Directing them to do things safely. I believe this is a true statement. To be a good leader, you have to be an awesome follower. That doesn't mean in your past. That means even now, that you're the leader. You still have to be an awesome follower, or you're going to be a crappy leader. And again, it's not something you go, I blew that as a firefighter, I guess I can't learn that one. You still can become an awesome follower. Ability to multitask but remain alert, especially in crisis. Communicates their thoughts. Okay? But solicits ideas. And we'll talk about decision making. I tell all my new lieutenants, you've got 51% of the vote. Listen to your firefighters, then make a decision. Take the input, but you've got to make the decision. So solicits input, solicits ideas. Practices the art of listening. What's the art of listening? Let people finish their conversations. Right? Have you ever been around those people? They're 4 steps ahead of you. They think they already know what you're about to say. I tell a story, we had a crew go out, an engine go out. This guy had severely cut his hand. I mean, definitely was going to need surgery. And they're taking care of the guy, and the neighbor comes over and says, hey, you know, he's the neighbor's in shorts, t-shirt, it's a Saturday. Hey, anything I can do? Can I take a look at that? Hey, we got it, sir. Yeah, you out of the way, sir. We got it. Firefighters, we're going to save this guy's life. So rescue comes, and after it was over with, the guy's still standing there, and he goes, hey, you guys know Omar Blanco? And they go, oh, yeah, he's the union president. I'm Omar's dad. They go, oh, I'm sorry, sir. You know, we didn't know you were Omar's dad. No, we wouldn't have treated you like that if we knew you were Omar's dad. He goes, that's not important. What's important is I'm a hand surgeon. He's the premier hand surgeon in South Florida. That was the important thing that got missed. They didn't give the guy a chance. We got it, get out of the way. Right? So let people finish their conversations. Practice active listening. I hear this pretty much every day from my wife. You know, you hear what I just said? Yes, I did. Now, don't ask me to repeat it, but I'm sure I heard something. Practice active listening, even when you don't want to hear it. So I don't know how many of you know Dr. Moore. Lori Moore worked for 25 years with the IAFF, came in through the fire service, phenomenal speaker, phenomenal educator. I just went to one of her presentations. I stole from her, but I'll give her credit. But these are things that she's talking about, and these hit home to me. These were things I thought, man, these are spot on. Lead by example, we talked about that, right? Don Shula said the only way to lead is by example. That's the only way I know how to do it. Act as the coach and the mentor, right? Inspire others, right? Your job as a leader is to develop your replacement, not one-on-one, but you should be developing those firefighters. And as a lieutenant, the chief should be developing those lieutenants to be the chief. All right, that's your job. That's part of your job. It's not an easy one. It's much easier to go, they're all a bunch of crap. You know, nobody's good. Okay? Be accessible. I heard that as one of the qualities, right? We can access the person. We're not intimidated by the person. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Be able to clearly communicate what's expected. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Encourage followers to contribute. Again, that open-minded. That doesn't mean I'm always going to take your advice, but I'm going to listen. Challenge. Hold others accountable. Okay? This is huge for many different reasons. In my staff room, I had printed on the board that couldn't be erased, follow up and follow through. Okay? Do what you say, follow through with it. Because if you don't demonstrate it's not important to you, why is somebody else going to do it? I've got a buddy that retired from New York Fire Department, worked on Rescue 2, which is one of the premier rescues. He told me, Dave, chief calls, needs something. I go, got it, chief, no problem. I don't give it to him. Figure, let's see if it's important. Calls a second time, says, hey, where were you at with that thing? I think, well, he remembered. I still didn't give it to him. After the third time when he asks, I figure it's important to him. I'll get it to him right away. So following up and following through. Hold others accountable. That doesn't mean you're nitpicky, but things have to happen. You know, at whatever level. You know, I'm a battalion chief, told lieutenant, say this is what we need to do. Did you get it done? Well, say yes or no, that's all I need to know. Okay? But now you know it was important to me too. So it should be important to you. Okay? Now I learned, and I don't think it's right, and I could never change it, and I consider myself pretty low-key kind of guy. I think everybody calls me chief just because they can't remember my name. It's easy to just say chief. But when I would ask for something, it's like takes priority over everything. Even when I go out of my way to go, look, this isn't important. When you get a chance, can you take care of that? But, you know, all of a sudden you're the chief, it has to be done yesterday. But that's not what I'm looking for. But it is nice that you realize it's important to me. So, is there a difference between watching and listening? Absolutely. This is something you need to realize if you don't already. People are going to watch more than they listen. You can talk all you want. After I'm done talking, that's all I've done. You have no idea if I apply any of this crap. Right? People are going to watch what you do rather than listen to what you say. Your actions tell me everything. Those people that come in and they got a whole diatribe about themselves, that's not what I look at. I look at their performance. I look at their turnout times. I look at their drill training. I look at things like that. Do you actually do what you say you do? Right? You all have those people out there, they're great at talking, not so great at doing. So practice what you preach. You'll be judged on your actions rather than your intentions. And your intentions can be sincere, okay? But you're going to be judged on the outcome. And sometimes that's tough because you don't always get what you don't always complete what you hope you can complete. There's plenty of things I left hanging. You know, I had a to-do list that never got shorter for me, just trying to accomplish things. All right? But you're going to be judged on your actions. And those are important to me. Firefighter safety was critical to me. And I drove it home day in and day out. That was always part of my message. So, just these are my reminders here. You know, fire departments are different. When I became a division chief, well, a couple things I learned. One was everybody wants to stop in and say hi, right? They're time thieves. Knock on the door, chief, got a minute? Come in. So one of the first things I did was I took all the chairs out of my office. Yeah, I got a minute. But you're going to stand there and talk to me. Turns out they talk a lot shorter when they're standing. When they sit down, throw the chair, feet up on the chair. So then they moved me to EMS, and our EMS division was notorious for 10-hour staff meetings. I mean, I have the attention span of a gnat. I get tired of, you know, get to the point, let's get it done, let's go. So I'm the new chief there. Of course I know all the players. I've been in the department. The chief that works under me, I said, hey, here's some agenda items. Find out, we had 15 EMS supervisors that would come into the staff meeting. Find out if they've got anything else. So they come into the meeting, everybody's yucking it up, we go through the agenda, blow right through it. All right, thanks guys. Whoa, chief, are we gonna do a round table? A round table, what's that? I mean, I know what it is. It's the kiss of death in a meeting, because everybody now has to talk. So I said, a round table, what's that? Well, no, we used to go to each of the captains. I said, didn't Chief Blackford send out the agenda? Didn't you have an item for the agenda we could discuss as a group? Oh, well, I mean, I thought, you know, we just do the round table. I go, you know what? Let's take a break. Come back in 10 minutes, we'll do the round table. They all left. I took all the chairs out of the room. Everybody came back in, everybody's standing. Go, okay, Jocko, you're first, round table, go. That round table was over in 10 minutes. That 10-hour staff meeting went to 35 minutes with a break. All right? So that became the joke at my department, even as the fire chief. I had a little conference table. We had a meeting, come on in and sit at the table. But if you did the old, hey, chief, got a second? No problem, you just stand right there, you can talk to me. Okay? And then the other thing was, when I became the chief of operations, you know, I'd sit in the meeting, and to our department, that was like, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, that's where things are happening every day. And we'd have these meetings, and everybody's got their computer out. Now, do you think they're taking notes in the meeting? Hell no. All right? So the first thing is, no computers. Okay? That's out. You're done with that. Number two, I'm going to give you an agenda. Remember, I'm an instructor, and you're going to take notes. That's how these minutes are going to work. I'm not going to have one of you guys have to type up every word we said, then circulate it to the other 6 guys. Then it comes back to me, and I have to edit it. And by the time we put it out, it's old news. You're going to take notes, just like a class. If there's any question, you ask me, hey, can you clarify that again? We're all wearing pink shirts? Yeah. Okay. then you're going to go out and communicate that message. That's how it's going to work. Now, is that perfect? I don't know. It worked for me. But I was never a guy sitting in a staff meeting with a computer. I practiced what I preached. Okay? And I'm not one for long meetings, so they knew that. Chairs in the office, I talked about it. My communications chief actually carried his own lawn chair, so he'd come up to see me, and he would sit down. And you know, those guys, they talk a whole different language. I mean, I affectionately referred to him as my propeller head, because megahertz to me is a big rent-a-car. Like, I know nothing about communicating. So after he's done with, on the console, I didn't understand another word he said. So when he saw me going like this, he'd go, all right, you've had enough. I'm like, yep, I've had enough. You know, it was either that or my lady that oversaw our strategic planning was phenomenal. But she was one of those people that if you asked her what time it was, she'd tell you how to build a clock. So she'd start going, and I go, Maria, I just need the time. Okay, I got it, Chief. Because let's get to the point and let's keep moving. Okay? Simple advice. You know, when I became a lieutenant, I went to a couple of our seasoned officers. I'm like, I'm scared to death. You know, I'd been a firefighter for 10 years, but I still wasn't ready. You know, give me some advice. I mean, you're a great officer. Why? How are you such a good officer? Because it's easy. Be the lieutenant. That's it. Enough said. Be the lieutenant. Of course, there's a lot more in store for you there, right? But it was simple advice. Be the officer. That doesn't mean you have to be the jerk, my way or the highway. No, that's not what we're talking about here. The 51% of the vote, solicit the input, but make a decision. And this went with me all the way through my careers. All I ever want are solutions, right? Don't give me problems. I got a whole boatload of my own. I need solutions, okay? So we can work through it. That also causes the other individual to think, right? Because how many times, we were talking about this before, how many departments you get somebody out of recruit training, and all I hear when I was the chief of training was, these guys aren't ready. Really? What are you doing, Lieutenant? Captain? It's on your watch now. You need to train them. It's not just my job. We do the foundation. You got to get them out there. You've got to work with them. Okay? So ask for solutions, not problems. And stay away from the negative people, right? Because they have a problem for every solution. Right? We have those people, right? No matter what you come up with, that ain't going to work. No, not here. Sometimes you just got to give it a try, right? Sometimes you just have to work through it. And you'd be surprised at how many times it does work. Sorry. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about decision making. I learned this right away when I became an officer. Man, was it much easier being a firefighter. Because all I do is say, hey, Lou, this is what I do. Right? It's much easier making suggestions than it is decisions. True? Absolutely. Why? No responsibility. You got no responsibility. Hey, it's on the lieutenant. I mean, I gave him my idea, but it's on him. Her. So it's a lot easier making suggestions. But as an officer, you have to make decisions. You have to make decisions. That's your job. And it's one of the toughest parts of the job. But you're the one that has to do it. So if that's not for you, fine. Don't be an officer. I tell all our new officers, you will be accountable for your decisions. True statement, right? I mean, that shouldn't be a news flash. You will be accountable for your decisions. This is the one that surprises them. And I fully expect you to make mistakes. Right? I fully expect you to make mistakes. How you learn from those mistakes is what defines you. We've spent our whole life doing this. Why does it change when you become an officer? Right? I mean, how many times have you done something, didn't work very well, and you went, I'm not going to do that again, right? You've learned, been there, done that. It's the same thing. Now, some of your decisions are much more critical. Some of them can be life and death. How many of you are EMTs or paramedics? Have you made a mistake maybe where it wasn't such a great outcome, and you went, well, I'm not going to do that again, right? I mean, let's be honest here, right? I mean, I can tell you till I'm blue in the face what somebody having pulmonary edema looks like from a book, but until you actually see them, right? Do you actually see a burn victim? I remember in recruit school, I was great at search and rescue and dragging out the victim. First victim I actually found in a fire was like trying to remove a slinky. They weren't that stuffed mannequin or hose dummy that was nice and rigid, that I didn't care how heavy you made it. You make it 500 pounds, I'll still drag it out. This was a little old lady that I couldn't get my arms around, right? So there's things that we learn all the time. That's what defines you. That's what defines you as an officer. You're going to make mistakes. My department, about the period of time I was in training, so I was kind of removed from operation, but I could see it. We were creating this culture of indecision. Everything was a discipline. You know, you went on this, you didn't go on that call, write them up. We use this term protocol violation, SOP violation. SOPs are supposed to be guidelines. If I think I have a house fire, this is what I should do, not the burning bush. And our officers were being taught, don't think. Because if you think and you're wrong, I'm going to get you. It was driving me crazy. So I become the chief of operations, and it's still prevalent in the department. I'm sitting in my office late one night, and I'm listening to the radio. A fire goes out, an area that I'm very familiar with. I've worked for a long time. Units are responding. Here the first unit arrive, heavy fire, you know, making an interior attack, blah, blah, blah. Immediately after that, I hear the next unit that I know should have either been first due or is definitely second due. They get on the air and they said, we just pulled up on a pedestrian hit. We're going to continue on to the fire, have Rescue 19 check the guy out. Okay? So, listening, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so, next morning, I have one of my ops meetings. So I throw it out there to the chiefs. So, of course, their reaction was what many of you were. Who was it? Was it my guy? Let me know. I'll take care of it, chief. So I'm going to let you know who it was. But here's what I want you to do. Next shift, I want you to go out to the station. I want you to meet with that lieutenant. When you meet with him, I want you to say, thank you. Thanks for making a decision. And then I want you to talk to him and ask him how he processed that information. Because I know he processed that information in a very short period of time. And I wasn't there. What did I know? I knew there was a fire. I knew that that was going to be the second due unit. I have no idea where that medic unit was. Could have been right behind him. I have no idea what that pedestrian looked like. Turned out his foot got run over. So, Lieutenant, what happened? What was going through your mind? Because we have a policy that says if you come upon an accident while responding, you should do what? Stop, render aid, get somebody else to handle that call. But I also said to my chiefs, how many of you have been responding? You're coming into an intersection, you hear the proverbial, boom. You look, this guy just bumps into the rear end of somebody else, and you keep on going. A minor accident, we're heading to the fire. I said, if you guys haven't done that, you're all liars. Because I know I've done that. So let's talk to that officer. Maybe he could have dropped off a firefighter with some equipment, continued on to the fire. Maybe this guy was splattered all over the road and you probably should have stopped. But this lieutenant can only learn by making a decision and then learning from that decision. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's right. It worked for us. I knew who the lieutenant was by his voice. I knew this was a great lieutenant. I knew he knew what he was doing. But I wanted to see how it played out. What that allowed us to do, and the message that it sent from the top down was, officers are going to make mistakes. And I want them to learn from those. Remember, the act of not making a decision is making a decision, right? You decide, I'm not gonna rule on that one. All right, this is often very painful because we all know it, but do we practice it? Orders are passed down. Complaints are passed up. Should it ever be the other way? No. No. It should never be reversed. Easy to say, tough to do. This ties back to how positive are you? What is your duty as an officer? Is that glass always half full? To your men and women that work with you, it is. In your mind, it was the stupidest idea the chief ever came up with. But that does not go down. That does not go down. Orders go down. You have 51% of the vote, but, and this got turned around on me by one of my chiefs when I made a decision he wasn't happy with. He said, I sat in your office and got that badge, you said I had 51% of the vote. I take all the information and I make a decision. I said, absolutely, chief. That is absolutely, I live by that. But guess what? I got 51% of the vote too. And when I make the decision, you execute the decision. Just like I expect your firefighters to execute your decision. So we all have bosses. Do I have a boss? Yep. Did I always agree with what the mayor said? Nope. But I executed it. I might complain. Which way? Up. I'm never going to come to my officers going, check out this harebrained, stupid-ass idea the mayor just came up with. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Is that the way it's supposed to work? I could think it all the time. And trust me, I do. But I don't communicate that. Okay? When a decision is made, execute the decision. That's what chain of command is. We want to wrap ourselves in chain of command. It's not the chain of convenience. It's the chain of command. How many of those do you have out there that's your buddy, and as soon as you go, hey, chief, what? Whoa! Did you go through your lieutenant? I just pick on you because you're on the front row. You know, it's the chain of convenience. I'll talk to you when I feel like talking to you, but if I don't like what you have to say, I go, hey, go through your officer. That's not how it works. Practice what you preach. That doesn't mean we can't have a conversation. But how many times do they come to you? I get the ones, hey, chief, off the record. You can't use the term chief and off the record in the same conversation. It doesn't work that way. Can we have an off the record conversation? Yeah. Fine line, but we might. So. Now, crisis decision making is the same thing. There's no magic here. It's just that you have a lot less time to figure stuff out. Seconds, sometimes. I love this picture from Kansas, a tornado. You think this chief's got a few things on his mind? Okay, processing information. You think every decision this chief made was correct? Probably not. Okay? So, we do a risk-benefit analysis, right? In crisis decision making, we do a risk-benefit analysis. Study the problem. Do you have an hour to study the problem? You pull up to a house fire? No, you don't have an hour, but you're processing the information, right? You are studying the problem. You analyze the risk. Now, when we're out in the public, we're there to save their life, right? So public is number one. But let's be honest here, right? We worry about our own first, because if I can't take care of my firefighters, how could they take care of the public? So what's the risk to my people, and what's the risk to others? And then you analyze the benefit. Does the risk outweigh the benefit? Processing this in seconds, milliseconds sometimes. And we all know the saying, right? Risk a lot to save a lot, but risk little to save little. You pull up on a house fire, and they say, my grandmother's in this room here. Is she alive? No. No. Am I going to put firefighters in there? No. Who am I putting at risk? The firefighters. To do what? But you pull up to this one, got smoke, got this. Am I going to risk more? Yes. You know, you pull up to a house fire at 2 o'clock in the morning, minivan in the driveway, toys out in the front yard, nobody outside. Are you going to put your firefighters in there? For sure. You pull up to a McDonald's on fire at 2 o'clock in the morning. Is there anybody in there? No. All right? They are. Sucks being them. They're not supposed to be there. Okay? But yet, and this is a number of years ago now, but Houston Fire Department lost 2 seasoned firefighters, making what they reported to be an aggressive interior attack in a McDonald's at 2 o'clock in the morning. Killed 2 firefighters. Did the risk outweigh the benefit? And the saddest part of this whole thing, besides the loss of life, do you know that the McDonald's Corporation budgets annually for the losses of 10 occupancies a year from what? Fire. They actually plan for that. What's that? Yeah. 2 firefighters lost their life. So risk-benefit is critical. And again, you'll be held accountable for this, both ways. Maintaining a situational awareness, right? Use everything available to you, including your firefighters. Everybody, take in the information, process the information. Don't we always develop multiple plans? We might not have them written down on paper, but are you rolling into a house fire saying, absolutely, we're stretching the first line through the front door, we're going to the left, we're going to knock the fire out, and this is how we're going to do it? No. That might be plan A, right? But hopefully in your mind, you got a couple other plans. I've gotten to plan H, I, J, and K before, right? Things aren't working, you go to the next plan. Make a plan, make the decision, evaluate the decision, make another plan, right? One of the toughest decisions in history I could think of is in Worcester, Massachusetts. Lost 6 firefighters when the battalion chief stood at the door and said, nobody else is going in here. We're not sending more people in here to die. Okay? They'd done multiple plans, and they said those aren't working. And that's important. That's an important fire to learn from too. Because, you know, we review fire fatality reports. I heard some of our people going, "Oh, we looking at this thing for? South Florida, we don't have 5-story windowless buildings that were used for refrigeration warehouses in the 1920s. That is not why those firefighters died. Nobody listened to those firefighters. It started with 2 firefighters getting lost. Those 2 firefighters made 18 radio transmissions saying, we climbed to the roof and descended down from the roof access. We are not on the top floor, we are on the floor below the top floor. On the outside, they thought they had a 5-story building, when in fact it was only 4 stories. And everybody that went to rescue them entered from the ground. Now, one team retraced their steps and said, I'm going to go to the roof and work my way down. 18 times those first 2 guys made transmissions, telling them, not exactly, but exactly what floor they were on. Never confirming I was on the 4th floor. They just said, I'm on the floor below the top floor. That's why those firefighters died. Could that happen in Miami-Dade? Yes. Could that happen in South Carolina? Yes. Okay? Don't be afraid to make changes. So here's where I let you down. True statement, right? Decisions are based on good judgment, right? You process the information you have available to you, right? Good judgment comes from experience. True statement, right? Not every fire is the same, not every emergency is the same, but there are similarities. But here's the part that crushes you. Where do we get experience from? Bad decisions. Right? The old, I'm not going to do that again. Okay? So it's a cyclical thing. Avoid the paralysis through analysis. Get the information, make a decision. You're the company officer, second due on a fire, you come across a pedestrian hit, you make a decision. That's what he did. Was it perfect? I'm never going to say that. Were there other options? Sure. But at that point in time, they made a decision. Okay? And the benefit far outweighed the risk of leaving that person. He knew that. I didn't know that by listening on the radio. My chief sitting in a room, me secondhand telling him it, had no clue. Talk real quickly about some firefighter safety. You know, it's disturbing to realize that throughout my career, all the advances that I've seen in firefighting, and we're still killing the same amount of firefighters every year. Okay? And they're not dying from new ways. So Chief Vinnie Dunn said this years ago, and I captured it. We must look at why others have been injured and killed in order to learn from that. And hopefully you're familiar. If you're not, NIOSH reviews every line of duty death. Unlike the IAFF, we're going to only use member departments. The Volunteer Council will only look at volunteer fire departments. NIOSH looks at every firefighter line of duty death. And they publish a report. And this is very similar to the Worcester report. Encourage your people to look at these. Encourage these young, new, those 500 I just hired to start looking at these things. God knows they love being on the computer looking at stuff. I have to print it out and read it. I like the feel of paper. But the point is, have them look at this stuff and apply that to your jurisdiction. It's critically important. Develop a culture for safety within your organization. Example of our warehouse here. If you don't have a forklift that reaches. Demand safety. Practice what you preach. We utilize drill safety plans. You know, again, large, diverse department. We don't make them do a drill safety plan for, you know, a forward hose lay, but if you're using power tools or below grade or above grade or live fire, you need to do a safety plan. We utilize incident safety officers. Hopefully you're doing something like that. The role of that safety officer, though, is safety. You know, we would send an additional chief. You know, we were chief rich. You know, on duty I had 14 chiefs every day. So, you know, you get a fire, we send an extra chief just as safety. But what would happen? They'd get there and all of a sudden I hear, safety to command, let's stretch a line through the alpha side. Is that safety? Nope. Nope. So we'd have to beat it into them. Safety, safety. You need that person on the alpha side, I'm okay with that. Get another chief there. Or get another safety officer there. Near-miss reporting. There's a national catalog. We created our own database in-house. But look at things, right? I mean, this came from the airline industry, and it's clear that every fatality, you can tie it back to several near misses. You may not want to own up to it, but when you really look at it, we had a firefighter fatality during recruit training. And it seemed like an isolated incident. It was because of the facility and all this other stuff. But when we really looked at it and when we really investigated it, there were 4 other occurrences where the same thing could have happened. And it just didn't. Looking at these occurrences, these near misses. And are we quick to want to point fingers at ourselves? No. No, but we have to. We created a safety zone, I'll show you that. This is just something we kind of put out. When I was chief of training, I had safety underneath me, so our safety captain created this, which was great. We get information on a fire or an incident or whatever, hybrid vehicles, you name it. We put out a safety zone. Just a one-pager. I'm not good for long meetings, and I'm not good for 4-page memos. I figure a firefighter is going to take You give them something, him or her something, that they can read while they're in their private space on the toilet. If it's going to be longer than 1 page, they're not going to read it. So keep it brief. Be brief, brother, be brief. So the safety zone would give some good information. We also, would create it for different types of, this was for hybrid vehicles, and it's just a bulletin out. And, our station captains got clever. I mean, they would mount these mounts above the toilets and stuff where you could slide the safety zone in. I don't care how they read it. I just want them to read it. I want to get the information out there. Yes, sir. It's just within the fire department, yeah, within the fire. But we just created it grassroots, yeah. How your personnel perform is a direct reflection on you. As an officer, it's your direct reflection. We were talking before about the rookies not being prepared coming out of training. And, we had gone through an aggressive hiring when I was the chief of training. We hired 400 firefighters in a year and a half. And so we had a lot of firefighters on the floor that we call probationary. And so how are you managing those? We literally were getting to spots where it was close to having to double up 2 firefighters on the same unit and taking care of them. But I put it on the officers. I said, this is on you. I was at a lecture or something, and it was Oklahoma. I don't know if it was Oklahoma City. It might have been Tulsa. But their fire department, if their probationary firefighter failed a performance objective, they disciplined the officer. They said, you failed them. You should have trained this firefighter. And if they're not prepared, I should have known that before I tested them. Now, because, some people just don't get it. So, these are things, I'm not going to get into the details, but, this is important, getting out of the station, leave usage, I'm a big proponent of sick, not using sick, counseling and discipline, company capabilities. Follow up and follow through. Again, as a chief, these things were important to me. I met with the battalion chiefs every quarter. We talked about a lot of information, but they reported out to me. I'd look at their turnout times. I'm not going to compare Station 1 to Station 2, but Station 1 on A, B, and C shift should be pretty close to each other, right? Because they're the same territory, same kind of calls, same things. So I'd say, hey, Chief, why is yours a minute longer? Explain that to me. So they knew it was coming. Leave usage, same thing. Why is this person, why was leave usage important? Well, financially it's important because we have to always have a butt in the seat, right? And we were going through some tough budget times. And so I'm trying to limit as much as I can overtime. And we'd have sick lists that were 3 pages long. I said, this just can't be possible. And people were just blowing out sick. I started looking at people, auditing, and in a battalion, we had 14 battalions, on average, a third of that battalion had less than 100 hours total, firefighters. I'm like, they're just blowing through their time. But then it became more important to me because we had a firefighter kill himself. And when we looked at it, he'd called out sick 10 shifts in a row. Nobody called to check up on the guy. What's going on, man? Did you break a bone or you're sick? 10 shifts. I mean, that's a month and a half almost. Who was putting that in the payroll? The battalion chief. I'm not putting it on that battalion chief. I'm not saying that he could have prevented this guy from killing himself. But you know what? We should be following up on our people. You're out for a few shifts. Something's going on. Let's figure out what's going on so we can prevent something. And maybe you're just abusing time. And if that's the case, I'm going to step on your neck. Because everything's automated now. I had the seasoned guy working at the airport, 200 and something hours of sick leave use in a year. So he got a written reprimand so he can appeal that to the chief. So he comes into me with the union rep. I'd ran his report. And he's like, yeah, I had a doctor's note for every one of those. I got this heart issue. It doesn't take me off the job, but I never know when it's going to happen. So I got to use sick time. I go, you don't know when it's going to happen? I do. Saturday. He goes, what? I push the report. I go, 17 of the 18 days you called out sick were Saturdays. Give this to your cardiologist. No charge. I solved your problem. Saturday is the problem. Now, let's talk about this doctor's note. The one day you called out sick that wasn't a Saturday was Christmas Day. So what doctor saw you on Christmas Day? And he said, well, I might not have been Christmas Day. And I said, I'm going to speak before your union rep speaks. You probably should stop talking. I'm done with you. You're dismissed. So they knew it was coming. Another guy, I got migraines. I don't know when it's going to happen. I do. Friday and Saturday. How is it that I know and you don't know? So everybody knew. I mean, I was hard. You know, you came to get promoted, we'd have that talk, but I'd pull your hours first. I go, hey, congratulations, Lieutenant, good job. By the way, what's up with your leave usage? So, it's important. And I made sure they knew it was important to me because I'm questioning the chiefs. And I would look at that. Why train? We know we have youth and inexperience, increased proficiency, improve safety on actual incidents, and evaluate your company. You know, I'm told you I was the new lieutenant, very seasoned company, very busy company. Why are we going to train? Because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That's why we're going to train. I know you guys know it. I want to be comfortable with it. So we're going to train. And I try to do it every day. That doesn't mean I'd lay 1,000 feet of hose every day or light a building on fire or something. Could be, hey, let's just take the saw off the truck. Let's go through changing out the blades. Let's talk about the saw, those types of things. Picture didn't come out good, but this guy right here, I don't know if you guys have read or ever attended Bill Guston. You know, he's our firefighter's firefighter. Every department has it. Teaches for FDIC, writes 1 million articles. But every day this guy trains. 65 years old, still rides the busiest company in the county. So, I believe in this. You call yourself a professional, you're a professional firefighter, act like it. Right? Amateurs train to get it right. That's not what we should be doing. So it develops teamwork, doesn't have to be complicated. I get a new member to my company. One of the best drills to test out a company is stretching a line. You'll see how proficient your company is just working it around corners, just stretching it through the truck stall, working it around the apparatus, doing a search drill in the station. You know, everybody gets ingrained in their mind that they got to do a right-hand search or a left-hand search. You know, so we got to break that when they get to the fire station. We got to say, listen, you got to go where the victims are. You stay in contact. You keep a point of reference. But the buddy system doesn't mean that you got to crawl through a building going, you there, I'm there, I'm there, you there, I'm there, I'm there, you there, I'm there. I'm going into a closet right behind you. I mean, how many people does it take to search a bedroom? There's only one way in and out, right? You might miss the door one time, but eventually you'll get back to the door. You know, you pull up to a 2-story house at 2 o'clock in the morning, heavy fire in the kitchen, take the front door. You going right or you going left? I'm doing neither. I'm going up the stairs. That's where the people are. They did not wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh my God, my house is on fire. I'm going to run and hide behind the big screen TV. That is not what they were thinking. And if it was, it sucks being them. You got to go where they're supposed to be. You know, we've got a huge dive program. I said, use the dive program. They said, yeah, we saw the boat flip. The guy went out in the middle of the lake. We go, okay, thanks. We're going to start the search at the shoreline. No, we're going to go where they're supposed to be and work back from there. So training that, making sure. You want to save lives, you're not going to do it by dragging each other around the building, tapping on each other. So, effective communications, saying what you mean. Somebody the other day said, I'm giving up alcohol for a month. I'm like, what? Are you crazy? He goes, what do you mean? I am so ticked off at this, I'm giving up. Alcohol for a month. I go, that's not what you said. What you said is I'm giving up alcohol for a month. Right? So say what you mean. Right? Same statement, said different ways. You have a sender and a receiver. It's only successful, communications are only successful when we understand each other. Maybe it's a head nod, maybe it's a repeat. When you're looking and it's that dazed glare, you figure out you didn't get it. Okay? So, one of the most important qualities of a leader. I don't know if you have it in South Carolina, but the grapevine is prevalent in Miami-Dade for sure. Right? The informal communications. And when I got on, it used to be telephone, telegraph, tell a firefighter. You want a message sent? Tell a firefighter. Fastest way. I'm in a staff meeting, whatever I'm talking about in the staff meeting in the central part of the county, they're already acting on it in the southern part of the county and the northern part of the county. Because that's how fast communication flies, informal communications. That's why those ops meetings I was telling you about, when it takes a week and a half to get the notes out, it's already old news. You have to be quick. Station rumors, don't have any of those, right? I know how the fire station is. You don't hear a good rumor by 10, start your own. I mean, I was famous to go in the station, the guy goes, hey, I heard. I go, you starting it or spreading it? If you're spreading it, who told you? Well, he told you, you starting it or spreading it? And I figure out who started it. You got to get out and talk. And those that are chiefs, chief officers, you've got to avoid the noise. What's the noise? That background chatter. It's always going to be there. I heard we're laying off firefighters. I heard we're shutting this company down. However it is. I heard. Most of the time, that's noise. As the fire chief, if I had reacted to every one of those bits of noise, I could never get anything done. Focus on things that matter. You have to listen, though. It is important. I was famous for drive-bys. I would just show up at a station. It'd tick off my other chiefs because they didn't know I was coming. I'd just show up. You know, maybe on my way into work, I'd stop, catch off going and oncoming. Maybe on my way home, maybe at lunch, I'd just show up. And I just want to talk to the firefighters. But there was stuff that came out that, you know, I'm like, what do you mean we don't issue rain gear anymore? No, this happened, that happened. I'm like, I didn't hear that. Let me check. And of course, when I went back and checked, sure enough, we stopped issuing rain gear. Now, we don't need winter parkas in South Florida, but we do need rain gear. So focus on things that matter. Station briefings, for me, I wouldn't go into a station unless I had my notepad. That's just because I'm stupid. I don't remember anything. So I have to write it down. But I also think it's important because I realize it's important. It's important to you, and I'm going to make it important to me. I'm going to make a note of that. And I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to let you know I looked into that. Now, they would never come and thank me because it got taken care of. And I had a station, this field next to us, the county owns it, we've got rats, all this stuff, can we get it taken care of? I'll follow up on it. Send it to facilities, yep, we got it taken care of. Or facility said, okay, I got it, chief. I never circled back. I went down maybe 2 months later. The battalion, I go, hey, by the way, at 6, did they ever take care of that field? Oh, yeah, it was like the next day. It was unbelievable. Because the captain never called me. He sure was quick to bitch at me when I was there. But he didn't drop me a line going, hey, thanks, chief. Got taken care of. Communication is the key. And I think part of the problem is not that, as the fire chief, I don't understand. I'm not in your shoes. I hear it all the time. Chief, your staff has to get out there and back, get riding a truck again. Well, it's been a while since I've been on a truck, but I think I could remember the job. And yeah, I've never done a report on a computer. I've written it down on paper, but I could learn that. But I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is just kind of understanding both sides. And so I'd spend a lot of time, and I'd encourage my other chiefs to get out there and just talk. Because 9 times out of 10 is just understanding the issues. And I would tell the guys, listen, I just want an opportunity to explain. By the time I'm done, just like today, you could think I just wasted 2 hours of your life, and you don't accept any of it. That's fine. I'm never going to ask you to accept it. I just want you to understand. And it's amazing sometimes how effective that can be. And so many people are afraid to do that. I'm not afraid to go, I didn't know We don't have rain gear. In an apartment my size, that's probably something that never made it to me. But I'm going to make sure I take care of it. You know, we had gray polo shirts. And all I would hear in the stations was, Chief, we order them, and first of all, I think they size them every time is different. I order a large, and this time it came down to here, and the next time it was a halter top. I think they're measuring them on little Guatemalans or something. So, and I order it, and I don't get it for 8 months. Let me check into it, check with logistics. Yeah, that's a problem. We found out that, you know, we send the shirts to be embroidered, and they do everything, but to get the name, you know, they get an order for 2 shirts for Downey. They're not going to set up the machine to embroider Downey until they get more orders for Downey. Well, I'm the only Downey. Now, for my department, Rodriguez, Suarez, I've got thousands of them. So are you telling me that if I just took their name off the shirt, that I could get those turned around right away? Yep. Take the names off the shirt. Well, you would have thought that I just told the guys you can't wear shirts anymore. I mean, the rumors were flying all over the department. Chief doesn't care, took the names off. So when I went out and I finally did it on my video, this is why everybody went, oh, well, that makes sense. You know, that's why he did it. It wasn't that important to me. When I got a complaint, they never went, so-and-so did that. They're not reading your name. The only thing good for the names is for me to read the name, because everybody's so new, I don't know who they are anyway. Hey, yeah. Okay? But the bottom line is, understand what the issue is. And I do the same thing. Why is it you need rain gear? Don't you have bunker gear? Yeah, we don't want that soaked. Of course not. But, you know, the point is understanding their side. So, a couple last things. Image is everything. Your image is your personality. It should be a high priority to have a positive image. So how many citizens do we touch? You know, this was alarming to me, and I applied this, and I was like, wow, you're right. You know, you think, we're the fire department, man, everybody loves us. Well, I can tell you, when you go through tough budget times, not everybody loves you. When you're saying, I got to raise your taxes, or I got to do this to maintain service, you're not as loved anymore. And I read an article, and they said, we're only touching 10 to 15% of the population. What? So I did the math. We're on 260,000 calls, and we've got a population of 2.6 million. 10%. That's what we touch in Miami-Dade. I go to those 10%, I've saved their life, I've preserved their property. If I say I got to raise your taxes, they'll say, definitely, double them, I don't care. You saved my loved one. But the other 90%, their only point of reference is, I block traffic, we're shopping 4 times a day, we have these loud sirens at all hours of the night. That's their point of reference. They've never needed us. How do I touch those people? That's what you need to think about. How do I get out to those people? That's the tougher part. So, oops, I just flew through that. So you do the math in your own organization, and I bet you it bears true. So you need to think about that. Take opportunities that are out there. If you are out there shopping, be courteous. If you have the opportunity. You know, now, post-September 11th, we lock all our stations down because somebody somewhere was afraid that some guy riding a camel was going to run into the station, steal the fire truck, and kill everybody. So now they use it as an excuse. And in South Florida, all the hurricane shutters are closed 24/7, 365 days a year. Why? Because it's nice and dark and calm in the station. And it looks like the stinking station is abandoned. So they knew if I was coming, those shutters better be open. And what's wrong with having the truck stall doors open? Be inviting to the community. When I came up, one of our neighboring stations, they mounted the basketball hoop in the front of the station. We'd have huge community games. Most of the time got our butts kicked. But the point is that people would come. A kid would stop by to get air in his bike tire. Now we don't even have air hoses to fill his bike tire. You know, but open up to the community. So image is everything, first impressions. What are the community expectations? Right? We do all kinds of things. We got to have the right uniforms, right colored trucks. I got green trucks, but that's just what we're known for. I like your guys' shirts, though. You know, they're the same color as our truck, so that's perfect. But what does a community really expect, right? Timely response, right? Solve my problem, be nice. That's it. This isn't rocket science. Now, this is going to offend, remember my hurt feelings report, this is going to offend some people, but I've never seen a complaint where they go, I cannot believe those guys came into my house wearing t-shirts. Aren't they supposed to be wearing a tie and all that brass and those button-down shirts? I know I'm going to offend some people. I had my own uniform patrol in my own fire department. I was known as the t-shirt fire chief because I took the bold move of saying after hours, on the weekends, and on holidays, you can wear a t-shirt. Now, if you happen to go to a parade or a building inspection or something, have your dress uniform. But I really don't care that you're doing that out of fire. Now, I know that's radical to some people. I don't want to offend you. But I've never gotten a complaint that said, their uniforms look like crap. Never heard it. It said we're not nice. We didn't solve their problem. We took forever to get there. That's what they're concerned about. Focus on what's real. I walked into one of my drive-bys. This gave me goosebumps. This is one of the busiest companies in Miami-Dade County. I'm walking in, and this guy's got the tools on the grinder. He's taking care of the tools. He's got his ear protection. He's got his eye protection for the safety people. But this is what I loved. I took a picture of him. He didn't even see me taking a picture of him. Went in, showed his officer. I go, this is great stuff. Who's this guy? Oh, that's firefighter so-and-so. I went and talked to him. All right? Taking care of your apparatus, taking care of your equipment says a lot about you. And you could argue the uniform. I'm not saying you should, look like crap, but you can look professional in a t-shirt. Okay? Open the station, we talked about increased visibility, get out, but be respectful. Last thing, today's fire service. Kids supervising kids. Less trade skills, right? We're not seeing that anymore. Now, I don't want to offend anybody, but I lump everybody into the same category. You either got dirty nails or you're an arm shaver. Nobody eats together anymore because this guy is vegan, this one has to eat kale, this one can only have fried food. So they can troubleshoot the EPCR, but they can't change a saw blade, right? So I don't want to offend anybody, but the point is we've lost some of this. But can it be learned? Sure, it can be learned. Part of the problem is a lack of commitment. I've seen more people leave the fire department in the last 10 years that just said, I'm not, when I was going around on my, exit, where it's like 37 years. There ain't no way I can stay 37 years. It's just a different culture now. It's much more portable. There's that lack of commitment, that service above self, that what's in it for me? You want me to go there tonight? No, we trained all day. We're not going there tonight. Okay? So that sense of entitlement. Yeah, why? Well, that's when you become the boss. Because I said so. No, you can't do that. So, some generational differences. These are the groupings, right? The baby boomers, the Xers, the millennials, and the Zeds. We know that there's always been generational differences throughout history. This is just what we're, seeing today. The current fire service is kind of made up of the tail end of the baby boomers, the Xers, the millennials, and the Zeds. This is a little scary to me. I'm glad I retired. 75% will be millennials. These are the people that do everything on the iPhone. They don't read the newspaper, they read the phone, but they are much more global. They're much more savvy. The Zeds, these are the ones that really get us crazy. They're less focused. I read an article that the attention span is 8 seconds. You've got to get your message to them in 8 seconds, they're done with you. Okay, that's it. Because everything's a tweet or an Instagram or a quick burst. And so, speaking for 2 hours, any of the Zeds in here, I lost you 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 52 seconds ago. They require that feedback, that why. That's not a bad thing. You just have to be prepared for that. I was brought up, I did it because the officer said do it. We used to call our officers boss. Boss did it. Boss said do it, I did it. I didn't really say, why me? Okay? They must understand the purpose. Again, to the why. Communication is critical. This is a big issue, especially for the chief officers. You need to be able to communicate. You need to have that ability to have open dialogue. Because if not, the Zeds and these millennials are going to post it on Facebook. You know, we had that before. You know, we're working on the gear. You know, everybody, the big thing with cancer was, everybody should have a second set of gear. Which again, at a department my size, that's a huge expense. But the expense wasn't the issue. I don't believe a second set of gear is going to cure cancer. I believe they should be in clean gear. That's what they need to be in. Some of our fire stations, they need 4 sets of gear. Others, I didn't need a second set of gear. I wasn't going in a fire. So it took a lot longer, but it was harder for us to work it where we changed out the gear. Okay? That's how we did it. And that was a cultural change. Hey, Chief, you took my gear. Am I getting my gear back? I'm like, you don't have gear? He goes, no, they gave me a loaner set. I go, does that have your name on it? He goes, yeah. I go, well, that's your gear. And when that stuff gets dirty, we're going to take that, and we're going to give you another set, and we're going to put your name on it, and guess what? That's your gear. I said, because we're getting out of the business. Hazmat, I don't issue each hazmat member their own personal level A suit. All right, that's not how it works. I said, I get it. Latex gloves. I'm just going to issue you 1 pair. And after every call, you can wash them out. And you can put your badass station logo and your nickname on the back, and you just keep reusing those. That's not how it works. All right? So, but we had an issue where somebody's gear didn't get returned right or whatever, and this guy right away, it's posted on Facebook. You know? God, look what the department's doing. 2,100 firefighters, almost 700 on duty every day, 1 fire that the guy gets the wrong gear back. To me, that's a pretty good average. Okay, but you got to be able to communicate. They act much more to visual, we know that. Everything's on YouTube. They've never read an actual book. That's not to say they don't read books, but it's all electronic. Okay? They're much more socially aware. They're entrepreneurial. These are all good things. Community-oriented, right? They're going after the next message, whether it's save the seals or get rid of fur or whatever it is. All right? Straws for turtles, whatever it is. Okay? They are much more community-oriented. And you can leverage that, right? So those are good. They're smarter than the boomers and much more ambitious than the millennials. So, what can we do? Don't give up. Make sure we stick to accountability. Don't look for somebody else to do your job. Train, prepare these people. Mentor, develop. It's up to you, right? You can't just go, these kids, I don't know what I'm going to do with these kids. I mean, you just can't do that. Last 2 things. Social media, we know it's the new normal. Is it a good thing? Absolutely. Right? Good public information, good way to send messages. Is it a bad thing? Absolutely. Okay? And the jury's still out on a lot of stuff. And I'm not going to get into all the details of it. But there is a delicate balance. Everybody wraps themselves in the First Amendment. And I say, great, you got the right to speak. But just remember, you also I have the right to discipline you for speaking that. So be careful. And my big thing, and again, it's not crystal clear. My big thing to our members were, don't bring anything negative to our department. All right, that's the big thing, all right? Don't do something stupid. I don't know where the line is. I don't think there is a line. You know, I mean, anybody can take it and manipulate it the way they want to. You know, I had an issue. I mean, I had phone calls from all over the United States. It turned out 2 of my firefighters and another person took a picture, posted it on their Facebook that had shirts on that said F Trump. That, by the way, they bought on Amazon. I mean, it wasn't like they made these shirts. They weren't on duty. And the one firefighter, if you zoomed in the picture, of course everybody knew who it was, you could see Metro-Dade Fire shorts. Now, they're not department-issued shorts. We've got one of those guys that makes station shirts for everybody and all these other shirts, and everybody can buy them. But I knew it was one of our firefighters. And so, of course, everybody wanted me to hang these people, right? Got to discipline them, fire them. I can't believe this. They're disgracing the president, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm going to investigate it for sure. Were they on duty? Nope. Were they at a station? Nope. They post this through the department computers? Nope. Is it appropriate or inappropriate? Point of view, right? It did bring negative attention to our department, but part of our people promulgated that. And I said, you know, I'm having a hard time because where do I draw the line? Is that any different than one of our members on their personal Facebook page wearing a sweatshirt that the same guy makes that says Metro-Dade Fire, that's sitting there with this giant buck he just killed? And somebody who's, you know, an animal lover or a gun hater that goes, I can't believe that person's one of your firefighters. This is not what this person does as a firefighter. You know? So it's a very delicate balance. You know, it's really hard. So this is the thing. Does it bring negative attention to our department? Last thing to talk about, PTSD. It's a huge issue in the fire service, but I've got my own spin on things. Have we created new ways that people die that we're exposed to? Did mass shootings just happen a couple years ago? Negative. Okay? So why? Why is this so bad now? This is Dave Downey's opinion. I think it's twofold. One is we don't talk anymore, right? Used to be you come back from a run, you sit around the table, you talk about it. Whew, I can't believe that, you know, that just had it. You get the younger member, you say, look, I know you're going to see a lot of that in your career. You talked about it. Maybe I felt personally like, wow, it's not just affecting me, it's affecting everybody at the table. Even the captain has been on the job for 30 years. Now we come back from the call, everybody's got their earbuds in, they scatter to their dorms, and nobody talks. Nobody eats together because everybody has special diets. Nobody talks. And the other thing is we can't get away from it. You know, we had locally at Parkland a shooting at a high school, and it was, you know, devastating. But it caused me to think. Because in 1992, I was second in on a 16-year-old girl's birthday in a, kind of, not a nightclub, but, you know, a band establishment. These guys went in and shot the whole place up. We had 24 people shot. 5 or 6 killed, a lot of people injured. And I thought, you know, I hadn't thought about that in years. And I started going online, and there's one newspaper article about it. That's it. And not one of their pictures were in the paper. And of course, 2 weeks later, Hurricane Andrew devastated us, and everybody forgot about everything. And then you fast forward now, where I can't even watch the ESPYs, a sports award show, where they're not saluting the Parkland victims. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but as the responders, I'm seeing those people again. And part of our coping factor, whether you know it or not, is we don't associate ourselves, right? I mean, how many times you run a call where you went, well, I know it was a female, but I'm not quite sure exactly who she was. You just purposely do that. Because when it is personal, it affects you a lot more, right? So part of it is we can't get away from it anymore. I don't know what the solution is to that. But it's an issue. For my department, we had 6 people kill themselves in 18 months. And I said, we got a problem here. What are we going to do about it? And like everybody's trying to do is, let's increase the awareness. Look out for your brother and sister firefighter. You're the one that's closest to them. Half of those 6 were retired. Because every one of our firefighters plans to the penny what their retirement is going to be financially, but doesn't have a clue what they're going to do a week after they retire. And so now all of our retirees also cycle through to talk to a group, just to say, hey, these are the things you need to think about. What's that? Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I created was a reserve program, which just means the guys can come back to the department, all right? They're not riding the truck in lieu of another firefighter. Older chief, I'd rather them ride with some of our new chiefs. Training guy wants to give a class, fine, but I want them to stay connected with the fire department. But that's important. Some move away and there's nothing I can do about that. But if they stay local, try to keep them connected. You know? But it's important. So increase the awareness. It's okay to be bothered by these things. I can tell you, and I'm not here, you know, on a couch for you, but I can tell you that during my career, I didn't have as much time to think as I do now in retirement. And things start coming back to me as well. You know, you start thinking about things I haven't thought about in years. You know, and sometimes the only people you can talk to are the people that were there, right? Nobody really knows what it really looked like, what it smelled like, what it felt like. That's why I'm not a big fan. You know, these CISM people now, we get, you know, a tragic incident and they want to send the whole crew home. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to be a hard ass here, but the people they need to be with are the people that experience the same thing with them, right? I mean, that's the only people that really know. And I'm not a doctor or anything. I don't know if that's true or not, but it worked for me. I always had comfort in knowing I'm not the one that's shaken up over this alone, because I wasn't here by myself. So pay attention to your people. Phew. I hit it right on noon. How about that, huh? Do we have a couple minutes, Chief? So this I used for my first budget presentation. I said, you know, I feel like this cat. Any questions? Or if you want, you know, I'll be around for a little bit afterwards too. Nothing? I know I pumped a lot of information into you in a short period of time. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Great group, and enjoy yourself. If you need anything, they have my contact information. Anything I can do to help you out, I'd be happy to. And have a great day and stay safe.
From everybody here.
Nice.
From our organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, and I don't have to worry about getting on an airplane with this, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
no. Thanks again. I certainly think what he presented this morning are important for all of us. A lot of notes being taken,
Absolutely.
but regardless of our rank, or even if you have rank, it is important that we're developing leaders both in ourselves and leaders throughout our organization. So again, thanks for sharing this morning. And just an observation of my own regarding Chief Downey. Over the last couple of September hurricane parties that a lot of your departments and State Fire have hosted here, folks from Miami-Dade and Southern Florida have passed through here, and the remarks they have for Chief Downey and what he's done for their departments. A couple of weeks ago we had the opportunity to go to Miami-Dade, and everything that we saw there, everybody that spoke of Chief Downey, even in his retirement, of the leadership that he gave to him. But last night as we were at dinner and had a chance to talk, we would discuss things, and his comments would quickly go to those things and back to his men who accomplished those and where it really meant. So again, it was good to see no credit for himself, but everything we mentioned continually went back to the men of his department and things that they accomplished. So again, thanks for the things you shared today, and thanks for setting an example for all of us as leaders as we continue to grow and impact our fire service. So, thanks again. I'm standing in the way of lunch.